Oh my god, the sun is shining and I'm so excited because it's actually not raining and it's the weekend. Hello everyone, it is Sam and I hope you guys are having a great day today. It is the beginning of April, which means that your feed is inundated by monthly wrap-up videos, and here I am to add one more to it. You know, it's nice to see what people have read during the prior month. So today I'm here to share with you guys what I read in the month of March, as well as some of my reading statistics. So without further ado, let us jump into the statistics. So in the month of March, I ended up reading a grand total of 5 books, which for me is pretty dang good since the past year-ish, I have been averaging about 3, so yay me! I read a total of 2,390 pages, which averages to about 77 pages a day, which isn't too bad. In terms of genre, there wasn't a big diversity in genre for me this month. 20% was science fiction and 80% was fantasy. In terms of book format, 60% were trade paperback, 20% was an uncorrected proof from the publisher, and the other 20% was a hardback. In terms of years published, 1 was published in the 1980s, 1 is going to be published this year, and the rest were all published in 2016. For my star ratings, I ended up rating 3 of the books 4 stars, 1 was 2.5 stars, and 1 was 2 stars, so not a bad reading month overall. In terms of the books and how I acquired them, 60% were new books that I purchased myself, 20% was a gift, and the other 20% was an ARC from the publisher. In terms of where I actually got the books, 1 was from a publisher, 1 was a gift, and the rest all came from Amazon. So enough with the statistics, we'll now dive into the books and what I thought of them, because I have thoughts, folks. The first book that I read, my favorite book of the month, was Assassin's Fate by Robin Hobb. This was the ARC that I received from the publisher, and I was super excited because I could not wait to get to this book. It is the final book in Robin Hobb's Land of the Elderling series. This is the 16th book. I cannot tell you anything about the plot because it is the very last book, and I will, if I even try to summarize the plot, I will spoil all the other books for you. So instead, I will give you my thoughts. So it took me a long time after finishing this to really kind of absorb how I felt about it. Part of me was kind of in a mourning pattern because this is the last Fits in the Full book and I wasn't ready for their story to be over. I felt like some of it was a little bit repetitive, kind of like how Assassin's Quest was a little bit repetitive at times. I did think that a lot of the action sequences was pretty great. You do kind of have a convergence of different plot lines and characters in this story. I really liked how that occurred and kind of seeing different characters interact. I did, however, feel like the end felt very rushed. I almost felt like she could have made this a 4-book series instead of a trilogy. I did feel like she kind of rushed a little bit at the end. It wasn't quite as much of a satisfying ending as I was expecting. I'm hoping to reread all 16 Land of the Elderlings books sometime later this year and into next year. And I'm hoping that I might have a different perspective if I binge read all of the series together. But right now, just how I feel about it is that it felt a little bit rushed and it wasn't quite as satisfying as I was expecting, but I still enjoyed it overall. So for the overall plot, I would give this book a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I would give the writing 4.5 out of 5 stars. I love Robin Hobb's writing. The characters I would give 5 stars. The world in which this takes place in, I would give 4 stars. I feel like there were some things that she did not fully explain even at the end, and I would have loved to have a little bit more detail on some of the aspects of the history of this world. And my overall enjoyment, I would give 4 out of 5 stars. For an overall rating of 4 out of 5 stars, it was definitely a solid book, but I think that it could have been a little bit better. The next book that I finished in the month of March, and one that I could not wait to get out of my life forever, was Ninefox Gambit by Yoon-Ha Lee. I have to admit, I did not much care for this book. I'll have a review of this one soon that fully expands on all of my thoughts. But the story follows our young commander of Cheris. She lives in the science fiction far future version of our world, I suppose. But she has been chosen by the High Command to basically embody the soul of a long dead general. They've kept his soul in what they call the Black Cradle, and they basically put his soul in her body. So together they can stop this calendrical heresy from occurring at one of their fortresses. What calendrical heresy is, I have no idea. I kind of view it as a type of forced entropy. No idea if that's the case because he doesn't really explain upon it. And that was one of my biggest frustrations with this book, was the lack of explanation. You're basically just thrown into this world and expected to sink or swim with no detail given, no explanations for anything. There was no descriptions of anything. The characters were hardly described. The world was hardly described. Just nothing was really fully explained. And I'm the type of person that likes a lot of detail. I like to fully understand things. I can suspend my disbelief to a point, but at some point I get frustrated because I want to be able to understand something, and when I cannot, and when the author is purposely not explaining things, I get really frustrated. Part of me felt like he was trying to be overly clever with his writing. I feel like he was trying to do something new and different, but it did not execute the way that I think was intended for me. If you like this book, I'm really, really glad that you enjoyed it. It just was not for me at all. I like a lot of detail in my book. I like a lot of explanation, and I did not find that in this book whatsoever. So overall, I ended up giving the plot of this story 2 stars. I gave the characters 2 stars because they fell extremely flat for me. I gave the world in which this took place in 1 star because I don't have any idea what this world is really supposed to look like or where it was or anything about it. I didn't really even have a history for it and how we got to this point. I gave the writing 2 stars. The writing felt very jarring to me. It felt like all over the place, just not my style of writing at all. And my overall enjoyment of this book, I would give 1 star because I felt extremely frustrated while reading this book. So overall, I gave this book a final rating of 2 out of 5 stars. I will not continue on with this series unless it is nominated next year for the BookTube SFF Awards like this one was. I still don't really understand why this one was nominated, but I can appreciate the fact that other people enjoyed it. I just know it's not for me. I know the type of books I like, the type of writing I like, and this one just definitely was not it. The next book that I finished in March was a reread for me, and I was so happy to be back in this world, and that was Alanna the First Adventure by Tamara Pierce. I love this series. I read it back in high school and multiple times since then, but it's been many years since I've reread it. It follows the young character of Alanna, who basically leaves for the capital to become a knight, a female warrior, first one in 100 years, but unfortunately it's not allowed right now, so she has to hide her identity, so she hides as a boy in order to learn to become a knight. And this series basically chronicles her adventures and her path as she fulfills her dream. And I really, really love Tamara Pierce's work. She creates very strong female characters, a lot of empowering details in these books that I really enjoy, and it's been great being back into this world once again. So in terms of my rating breakdown, I give the plot 4 stars, I give the characters 4 stars, because there could be a little bit more expansion, but this book is slightly more middle grade / YA, and she just kind of lacks detail in terms of drawing the characters. I give the world this takes place in 4 stars. You don't get a whole lot of detail in this book, but I do know because I've read them before that you get a lot more detail in the future books. I give her writing 3.5 out of 5 stars. Her writing is definitely not the best in this book. Tamara Pierce definitely gets better in her writing as she goes along, but it's definitely the weakest in this first quartet. And I gave my overall enjoyment as 4 out of 5 stars because I really enjoyed this series. So my overall rating for this book was 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I finished in March was The Savage Song by Victoria Schwab. I am also going to have a full review of this one coming up soon, but suffice it to say I really enjoyed it. It follows our 2 main characters of Kate and August, and they basically live in a dystopian version of our world in which monsters reign supreme, and these 2, August is one of the monsters and Kate is a human, and they both live on opposite sides of the city. Both are part of the ruling families of the 2 different sections of the city of Verity, and soon an unlikely friendship forms between the 2 as they kind of set out to figure out their own path in this world. I really enjoyed this overall. It was a lot better than I was expecting it to. I liked the characters, I liked the monsters, the various monsters, and how they were born. They're born from violent human crimes, which I thought was kind of an interesting take on it. And I just found myself enjoying the book while I was reading it. It was very engrossing. So my rating breakdown for this one is as follows. I give the plot 4 out of 5 stars. I give the characters 3.5 out of 5 stars. I felt like they could have been a little bit more well fleshed out, especially the side characters. I gave the world this takes place in 3 stars. I feel like she could have expanded upon the world and how we got to this point and what happened exactly. I feel like she kind of skated over that, but she didn't quite fully touch on it. I'm hoping she will in future books. I give her writing 3.5 out of 5 stars. It wasn't the best writing I've read from Victoria Schwab. It could be a little bit jarring at times for me, but overall it was still pretty good. And I gave my overall enjoyment 4 out of 5 stars for an overall rating of 3.5 out of 5 stars. So it was definitely an enjoyable read and one that I look forward to continuing on the rest of the books. And the final book that I finished in March was A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. I will have a full review of this one coming up as well, but suffice it to say it was better than I thought it was going to be. I definitely still had problems with it. It was the Beauty and the Beast retelling, and it follows our main character, Feyre. This world that this takes place in is divided into 2 separate lands. You have the Fey lands and you have the human lands, and they're divided by an invisible barrier. They're divided because 500 years ago there was a war that the humans fought to basically win their freedom from the Fey because they were basically used as slaves. And there is a treaty, and things can happen if you break this treaty, and Feyre breaks this treaty by killing a Fey, and she's basically taken by the High Lord of the Spring Court to live with him forever in his lands because she killed one of his people and now her life is forfeit. And so it kind of takes off from there. She learns about a blight that is affecting the Fey lands that could move into the human lands, and of course she begins to fall in love with our main character, our main romantic character of Tamlin. And then This is basically when the story starts to take off, and she basically tries to discover what role she's going to play in this world, which is a pretty big role, and how she's going to affect not only her life, but the lives of her family and the Fae world in general. Overall, the book was okay. It was a lot better than I was expecting it to. I had a lot of problems with it, which I definitely expand upon in my review. Mainly that was the romantic elements of this book were definitely problematic for me. The way that the men were treating the woman was very much, I had an issue with, like, oh, you need to control your actions and how you look, etc., because I can't control myself around you, like that kind of thing, and I'm not okay with that. I also didn't like how a lot of them would kind of force her to do stuff that she didn't necessarily want to do, particularly one of the later characters, Recent, and basically there was also a fairy version of roofing people, so I just had a lot of issues with that. I did hear book 2 got better about that kind of a thing, and I guess I'll find out when I continue on to it. So overall, it wasn't the best book, but it was definitely a lot better than I thought it would be, and it was definitely better than the Thorn and Glass books. So my rating breakdown for this one is as follows. I gave the plot of this world 3 stars. It was definitely interesting, and I liked her take on the Beauty and the Beast retelling, but I think she could have done a better job of it. The writing I gave 2.5 out of 5 stars. Sarah J. Maas is by no means my favorite writer. I think that her writing can be jarring, and I think that she is definitely more wordy than she needs to be, and it's not as smooth or does not flow as well as it could. The characters I'll give 2.5 out of 5 stars. I found a lot of the characters to be kind of unlikable, including Farah as a main character. She just got on my nerves sometimes, and I wasn't super interested in the main romantic interest in this story as well. Tamlin fell a little bit flat for me. I think that this book could have really benefited from having multiple character perspectives instead of just having it from Farah's perspective. The world this takes place in, I give 3 stars. It definitely seems like an interesting world, but one that she really didn't expand upon in this book, and I'm expecting her to do that more so in the future books, but we kind of just barely scratched the surface, I feel like, of this world. So I felt like it could have been a little bit more well drawn, and I would love to have more of a historical background for this world as well. In terms of my overall enjoyment, I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Despite my issues with it, I still found myself kind of enjoying the story and kind of binge reading it. I read it in like 6 or 5 days, which is pretty fast for me. So I ended up overall rating this book 2.5 out of 5 stars. Definitely a lot better than I was expecting it to be, but it definitely could have been a lot better than it was. Alright guys, that is it for my March reading wrap up. I would love to know what you guys think of all of these books. If you have read them or anything else you want to throw down in the comments, you'll have to let me know. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys all have a beautiful day. Until next time, happy reading. Bye!